Welcome to the Future of Work, broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio inside the Mac 6 Entrepreneurial Center, where we will discuss how and where people work in entrepreneurial, nonprofit, and small business industries with your hosts, Kyle McIntosh and Al Loveland.
Welcome to another episode of The Future of Work with myself, Kyle McIntosh, and my partner, Al Loveland. Hey, Al.
Hey, how's it going? Great to be here today.
For sure. We've got two great guests on the show today that'll be really interesting for lots of reasons, and they are Dilshad Mint, who is the owner of America's swimming pool company of Tempe, and Karen Nowicki, the owner of Phoenix Business RadioX, whose platform we're on right now. How are you guys doing?
So good.
Phenomenal.
This is our first time meeting, I think.
It is. Actually, I think I've seen you and met you in Tempe Chambers of Commerce Leadership stuff.
It's been a long time.
It has.
Okay, well, welcome to my studio. And I'm playing with the sound because when that intro went, we didn't hear it through our headset. So while we're chatting, I'm going to be producing and making sure that we're live on LinkedIn at the same time. I can multitask. So kick us off, and I'm going to reach my phone and make sure that our LinkedIn listeners can hear us as well.
Dilshad, I'll go to you first with the question. So something that's interesting about both of you, I think of you in a little bit different way than a number of people that I meet and come to talk to around here. And everybody's got their really cool things about them. But as far as people that I find genuinely interesting and out there trying to help the world and help people, there's a tie that binds somewhere in there. And so I'd like to get to that at some point. But let's start off with Dilshad. What are you doing now? What is the America's Swimming Pool Company of Tempe? Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into, all right, how'd you get there from where you started?
Got you. So America's Swimming Pool Company of Tempe is a swimming pool company that, weekly maintenance, repair, renovation. It is a nationally and I think soon to be internationally franchise all over the United States, and I think moving to Canada as well as a franchise. In Tempe, I am the franchise owner of Tempe and parts of Phoenix. There has been, even though I am new to this industry, there has been people owning franchises in Mesa, Gilbert, Levine, Queen Creek for 15 plus years in Arizona.
And what do you do? It's implied a little bit in the name, but what do you do?
So basically, we do weekly pool maintenance. So, cleaning your pool, maintaining your pool, making sure the chemicals are balanced in a high level, that your pool is safe and fun to just have fun and swim in, to be safe. And what's the other word I'm searching for? I don't wrestle words right now.
That's what we want in Arizona, right? A swimming pool.
Yeah.
It's safe and it's fun. That's it. Let's stick on you for a second here, Dilshad, and then we'll go to you, Karen, and ask the same questions. But where did you grow up, and how was swimming pools the thing you've been interested in forever, or how'd you land there? Imagine you've had all kinds of a journey from where you grew up and to get there, but just a little bit of that journey.
Interesting enough, I was born in Southeast Asia, a country called Burma. No swimming pools at all whatsoever. At the age of 10, I migrated to U.S. and grew up majority of my life in New York City, uptown Manhattan. I went to high school in the Bronx, college in downtown Manhattan by the World Trade Center, moved to Queens, and then eventually came to Arizona. So very few instances of swimming. And ever owning a swimming pool in New York. It's here in Arizona we bought our first home, that we bought a house with a swimming pool. And one of the reasons why I insisted, and my wife was against it, buying a home with a swimming pool was I have two girls, and I wanted to make sure that they knew how to swim, number one. Number two, that they knew how to swim, they learned how to swim in the privacy of their own home. Because of my background, my religious background, I have girls, and they were not comfortable going to swimming pool suits outside in public, and which I was like, I feel you. I am going to do everything in my power as a dad to make sure that you get what you need. that's basically all it was for me to own a home with that. And I never had a pool before. So I learned how to maintain it, how to repair it, put my own pump in, put my own filter in, and piping and stuff like that, and whatever I could figure out. But that's not why I ended up in this franchise. That in itself is a different story, but that's how I came across swimming pools.
It's a great story.
We'll get to that, how you ended up in this. But
Yeah.
All right, Karen, we're on your platform. Theoretically, people know what's going on around here, but what is this that you do with Phoenix Business RadioX?
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you grow up? Where did you grow up? And how somehow did you end up from there to where you're sitting right now?
Well, I have a swimming pool story as well. I grew up, or was born in San Francisco Bay Area. No pool. It was too cold for us. But I learned how to swim in an indoor pool and loved swimming. And then when my dad moved us out here in 1979, right before high school, in fact, he's still in that same home today in Tempe. We had a pool, an outdoor backyard pool, and I became a swimmer. I ended up coaching swim team and teaching swim lessons and lifeguarding for the city of Tempe all through my college years when I came home from NAU. And as a lifeguard, we had to know how to maintain, test the chemicals, clean the pool and all that. So it was kind of, for me, coming to Arizona as well, that had me loving swimming. And how can you not? I mean, I think really here in Arizona, we have to have access to a pool. So Phoenix Business RadioX, 7 years ago, I was starting my coaching practice and getting more and more clients who were professional. And when I say coaching practice, I work with people with their mind, body, and spirit connection to whatever degree they want to be a more whole version of themselves. It's not for me to decide that. It's up to my clients. And as I worked with more professionals versus kind of just general lay people or parents, mayors of cities, attorneys, doctors, I was finding they were not referring me as easily as some of my general folks. And I couldn't figure that out. Why? Because I was still the first person they called when they had a success. And I knew they were reaching their goals. So my coach at the time said, well, ask them, why are they not referring you? Because I set the tone ahead of time. Like, when I do a great job for you, please let others know, how you got here with my help. And otherwise, I'm putting myself out of business the moment you have your success and move on from me. And so their feedback, I went to 3 clients who I got to know very well. And their feedback was in some form or version of, you are the best kept secret. And why would I want anybody to know that I have Karen Nowicki in my pocket, helping me with some of the things that are really kind of hard to talk about? Maybe it's getting their money in order. Maybe it's a divorce situation or a child situation where things are not going well, or they don't know how to communicate well with their customers or their clients or constituents. It was, something they wanted to keep under wraps, more of an ego decision, I think, over anything else, but I wanted to honor and respect that. And so long story short, I spoke to my coach and she said, well, you've got to do a podcast then. And I thought, 1, I don't even know really what that is. And 2, when I figured that out, I thought, I really don't want to have a show where I talk about myself all the time, although I love to lead and I love to be in a position where I can teach and guide folks. I didn't want to have a podcast where I was kind of sharing thought leadership all the time. And I came across Business RadioX, which is like a franchise. It's a licensed partnership. And I've been here for 7 years now. I just shared with you guys in the green room before we came live, over 2,000 shows I have either produced or hosted. I have several clients, including Mac 6. And I've been here at Mac 6 for 6 of those 7 years. And I've loved every minute of it. So this beautiful merge between business and how I help individuals and professionals become a better version of themselves. I know it's a long-winded answer, but there you go.
We're putting you on blast today. No longer the greatest secret.
Right. Hopefully not.
And what about, so where did you grow up?
Yeah, right here in Tempe. Yep. I in 79, we moved out here. And then I went to McIntosh High School and went to NAU. And got my master's at University of Phoenix in organizational development. And are you a native? You are a native.
Mostly. I moved around a little bit. I was born here, though, and came back.
Yeah. And Al, I know you're not a native.
Pennsylvania.
Yes, Pennsylvania.
Yes. So one of the things that we thought about the theme of today is professional development and personal development. And hearing both of your journeys is that you kind of came to the point in Dilshad, you're learning about this right now, where you're starting this process and you're kind of a sponge and kind of soaking in stuff. And there's also an innate curiosity. Like the one thing was interesting about what you were saying there about your pool was, I was curious about the filter, went back and worked, and I went to work at it. And then too, as a parent, you were curious about how your daughters felt to be able to go back and develop things for them. And I just want to share a story about Dilshad, about how we met. Anybody who does anything new, and like right here at Mac 6, we have a program called Heroic, where it's a personal development app. And we want to have some things for community members. And so we have people in person, we have people on Zoom, and then you're always hoping, is anybody besides us going to show up, right? You've had that feeling before. Yes. And one day we pull Zoom up, and here comes someone, there's this face I'd never seen before, name I never heard of before, and I'm like, what's this going to be? And I actually saw the face, but I had the voice because I had talked to you a couple of weeks before about the virtual office. And what's been great about Dilshad is that, he's someone who shows up the first time. You're like, okay, we'll never see this guy again. And that was opposite the case. It was like he was there the next week, and then the following week, and then he brought someone with him. And then I remember one time, Scott, who's our leader of this, said, I want you to bring a guest. And everybody's sitting around going, okay, I forgot my guest. Where'd they come? And here comes Dilshad with his guest. And so he was following up on these things. And so, Dilshad, the first question for you is, as you have this new company and your passion for personal development, take us through that, and like, when did it start killing inside of you, and what things do you like about it?
Wow, that's a heavy, deep question. So I guess personal development, I feel like I'm a late bloomer. I wish I know what I know right now 20, 30, 40 years ago. I feel like I would have been so much further ahead in life. Besides the point of that, as I was going through life, I was, for one reason or another, put into leadership positions in corporate America. And of course, whenever I have people who report to me, I feel responsible. I feel like I need to help them develop to the next level. I've never been a person, like Karen was saying, best kept secret. Like, no. My job is to make myself better and then help you become better so you could take my position. I was never, ever worried about people taking my position. In fact, I will help them to get to my position because I know like something else would happen, because I believe in a creator that takes care, right, who runs this universe or multiverse. So having said that, I would have all my one-on-ones with all my direct reports would be very cordial and say, okay, tell me what's going on. And people would just pour their soul out to the point where I would say, ooh, TMI, that's way too much, right?
Yes. I've been there before. And it's like, you go back and you're like, oh my goodness, like I'm not prepared for this.
I'm sorry for this morning, Al.
Yeah,
I was just going to say the same thing.
Exactly. And as I was going through years and years of these leadership positions, a lot of people started saying, you ever thought of being a life coach? I think you'd be really good at it. So I was like, no, I'm here. I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing that. Then after a while, it started nagging me. I was like, oh, okay. And then the people would just come to me and be like, hey, can I ask you a question? Can you give me some advice? Can you do this for me? I was like, sure, why not? So it became like during work, after work, hey, can I just bug you for a second? And then I was like, can I talk to you after work in the parking lot? And I would not leave the parking lot for like hours. I'm like, oh. So long story short, I saw that people were just hungry. They wanted somebody to talk to. They want some help with some direction. And I not only wanted to help them, it was helping me, right? So I was like, this is something that, there's a saying by, I don't know if you know, there is a YouTuber, I forgot his name, but he has, IT is the initials of the program. It'll come to me in a minute.
Okay.
But he says, basically the concept is, passion is something that gives you more energy than it takes from you when you do it. And I was like, this gives me more energy. I don't go home tired after this. I know I'm going to go home. My wife's going to yell at me like, why aren't you here? Waiting for dinner. But besides that, I was like, yeah, I'm glad I helped him. I was able to help him. So, and the more people I was helping, the more people would tell other people about them. And then they're like, okay, cool. Go talk to Dilshad. Like, you know what? You have an issue? Go talk to Dilshad. He can help you with that. Oh, I had the same issue, so that's where
Okay.
I like people.
And Karen, I have a sinking feeling that some of that probably speaks to you in a couple of ways as you kind of were, working your way through your career, and some people start talking to you, and it started to feel natural to be that sounding board for people. So take us through how you developed into that coach that you are today.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So when Grady and Madison, who are now 30 and 28, were little, I went through a very difficult divorce with their dad. And I thought up until then that I kind of really had life together. Like I'd always been a pretty good kid. I was, went to college. I was honest. I, helped others, cared for others. And I really kind of flatlined a little bit around this marriage breaking apart. And so I wanted to just study how to make a new set of decisions. How do I take better care of myself and that sort of thing. That's when I went and got my certification as a life coach through the Debbie Ford Institute, which at the time was housed through John F. Kennedy University, and ended up becoming a mentor coach for coaches all over the world. It was an online program, again, early 90s. And I remember at one point I'm sitting in the library, one of the Chandler libraries, with my kids reading stories, and then they went off to find their own books. And this woman came up to me and sat right down by me. And Dilshad, you can relate to this. And I think both of you two can as well, because you have similar personalities. This lady, I didn't even know her, just poured her heart out to me. And she said, I need somebody to talk to. And you look like somebody I could trust and I could just speak to. And so I spent about 45 minutes just listening to this woman who was, curiously enough, going through a divorce as well. But in her culture, it wasn't something that was acceptable. And she would have been shunned and cast aside by everybody. And she was really in a quandary. As I'm listening to her, I'm thinking, I really don't know how to help this lady. However, God, universe, has trusted her with me right now. So I'm just going to sit and I'm going to listen and I'm going to be present and I'm going to just kind of listen to what I could ask or how I could speak with what little skills I had at the time as a life coach, because I just started the program, and referred her to a church that would welcome her and help her and gave her some guidance. She gave me a hug. She started crying and she said, you're exactly who need to be in my path today. And I can tell you that many, many times after that, similar situations have happened, and I've grown in an incredible skill set so that I am prepared for most every question. And I've heard and held a lot of secrets for people, a lot of areas in their lives that they're ashamed about, embarrassed about, and I can hold space for people and know that they can heal simply by having someone they can disclose and talk to. So that's a little bit about how I found my way to that.
No, it's great. I'll share a quick story about my professional development is that I used to have to drive 25.4 miles to work every day. And that would range anywhere from about 30 minutes to an hour. I used to drive down the roads to Pennsylvania and to Wilmington, Delaware. And, I'd listen to sports talk radio, or I'd listen to rock and roll music stations. And one day, this is dating myself back in the 90s, I went back and I had this thing for cassette tapes for this thing called the Teaching Company. And it was called Great Courses. And I went back and I said, maybe I'll go back and I'll listen to this going back and forth. And I started this journey of college courses that I would go back and listen to, and they were tremendous in that I listened to different things about famous Greeks, famous Romans, great minds of the Western intellectual tradition, study of religion, and it gave me a great insight of human nature. And as I go back and you start listening to more stories, what I've started doing is started listening to those things over again, because I'm a different person now than I was when I was in my 30s and 20s, and things that didn't make any sense to me make complete sense to me right now. And so as I read, and the thing is, it kind of helps you see more things. And a lot of times, like what Karen was saying before with people is that people can't see things. It's kind of like the old trick pictures, where it has the young and old woman. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that people go back and they see, and when you take a step back and it's like, how do they see the world? And especially when you go back and you learn about different cultures and the past and like the things that people had, and then before, rather than being judgmental, you start having that feeling of empathy where you understand where the person's coming from. But then also too, going back and knowing that the path they're on is going to continue to lead them in the same place. And so you try to shape how they see the world for them to start making some different changes and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that I think from a professional development point, but it takes work, and it takes that feeling that to come back and say to yourself is, I don't know it all. And I'll just share one of my favorite stories was from, one of the founders of this was Socrates. When he went back, and this is really a profound thing that I learned early, was he went back and the Oracle at Delphi told him that he was the smartest person. And he said, I'm not the smartest person. He went around and he asked people like why he would have been the smartest person. And what he found was that he was the smartest because he admitted his ignorance. In so many places and so many things in life we're all ignorant in something. You put me out in front of a car, I know where the key goes, I know where to put gas in. And I remember one time someone said, "Can you help me with my car, giving it a jump?" And I'm like, I don't even know how to open my hood. So anyway, there's different things. And so, Kyle, you want to take it from here?
I was just talking to someone about exactly what you just said yesterday, that like the unfortunate trait of human beings is hubris around ignorance. And that more people don't take the time to, I learned something new, and it doesn't prove how smart I am. It proves how dumb I was and how much more there is to learn. And what a cool thing that is to understand, because there's so much out there you get to keep going. I mean, I guess it's ego or just people are trying to make their paths forward, but it is a really interesting thing that you see all over the place. Like, oh, I've got this, I know this, as opposed to what am I not seeing and how do I go seek those things out?
My word for the year and the theme has been stay curious. And that's really benefited me for months now, just around saying, I don't know. And that's okay. So where do I go find information that can help me know more, knowing that I'm never going to know it all?
That's ironic because I just finished listening to an audiobook by Brian Geiser called Curious.
Oh.
And it's an audiobook. It's phenomenal. He has a huge, the whole entire book is about how he basically used curiosity as since he was a child. That was a trait. Like when how people describe like he's funny or he's athletic. He said his description was curious, and he has used that through adolescence, adulthood, and he's a movie producer in Hollywood. And how he got his jobs that way, and how he kept and going through his divorce and the family, whole nine yards. And he said curiosity.
I love it.
Yeah. If there's two traits that I would hope for in my kids or any kids, or just to retain through life, is curiosity and grit. I think those two things together, ask questions about the world, and then as you figure a little bit out, be willing to put in the work to just keep things going.
Isn't it funny that as kids, naturally, children are curious. It is the adults who want to conform them to say, why are you asking this? Like, why is the sky blue? Majority of the adults don't know the answer. They're like, well, aren't you the curious one? Right? Or else the people who do know, like, wow, that's a good question. We'll talk about that later. And how to just thwart that curiosity. And you just learn as you grow older, like, it doesn't pay well. I wish as adults we should encourage more curiosity and take the time. I think they will do that.
How else do you describe entrepreneurship as I'm curious about something that's broken? I see it, or it's not working better. It could be better. And curious enough, I'm going to learn about it and see if I can solve a piece of that issue at least. And I mean, how else do you start a business or think about how to do something new? You have to be curious about the world, but it probably comes up because I stubbed my toe on the table and I developed a new table that had legs that came inside. And it's this organic thing as opposed to this process of like, how do I bring curiosity into my life more often?
And one thing I'd say too, as you get older, got a little gray hair here, I guess you can hear it, but as you talk to people that are younger, you can really kind of see where, things are coming, and you can anticipate because you've been there before. And that's one thing too, like with professional development, is you learn, like I remember when I was starting my consulting business, is that I would read a business book, but then I would read a psychology book. And one of the most profound things that I learned once, it went back and it said, it's not you, it's your brain. And in so many cases, the brain is built through tens of thousands of years of evolution. And if you think about it, is that we've been civilized only for like the last like 10 seconds of humanity. And so like before, you were worried about, a grizzly bear or lion or something else going to go back and eat you. And so your brain goes off with those things. And then today we don't have to worry about those things, but that part of our brain is still looking for something to go haywire with. And part of that gives me the insight is that, when it went back to me one time and I read, it said, it's not you, it's your brain. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's not me per se, because when my brain was going haywire, I started thinking, oh my goodness, it's me. And then you start feeling bad about yourself and you start going down that dark path. But then when you work in that professional development and that stuff comes back to you, then you're like, okay, it's not me. It's how I'm wired. How do I go back and make the changes to be able to deal with those things? And then you can go back, and once you master that, then you're able to go back and share that with somebody else and say, it's not you, it's your brain. And that really kind of goes back and helps people. So Karen, what do you dip into for your intellectual diet? Like what things you read, like what things inspire you, like what things help you continue to learn?
Like you, I read a lot, only I listen to audiobooks now because it's a lot easier driving and hiking and cleaning the house and that sort of thing. So I'm constantly reading. I don't know why I'm going to share this, but I've always been a lifelong learner. So for me, reading, watching videos, anything I can do to improve what I'm doing is where I'm spending my time. And the other piece of it too is conversations, having conversations. That's one of the things that I love most about owning the studio. We have the best of the best in the studio. We have captains of industry and industry leaders and experts in all sorts of different things. So as I get to produce and or host shows, I get to learn from the greats and then continue building those relationships. The other piece I think I would say is tapping into not so much around the intellectual part of me, but the spiritual part of me, and letting that be my guide, the soulful self of me. That's where I feel like the most learning at the age that I am now comes triple fold. That if I can lean into how I'm being spiritually led, then the rest takes care of itself.
How about you, Dilshad, and then Kyle? Like, what do you read? Like, what's your intellectual diet and what things? And then Kyle can follow up on that.
So, ironically, I was just telling you about the audiobook I was listening to, Brian Geiser's Curiosity. In it, he spoke about the fact that he was dyslexic, which I've heard the term with Richard Branson with Virgin Records, and so many times, it was not, and I've never said this before out loud because I just thought about this. I just thought through this 2 days ago, literally when I was hearing this. I never thought of myself as dyslexic. But growing up, I had a hard time reading and comprehending books. It was like literally draining for me to do it. And to the point where I remember as a Muslim, in case you guys didn't know, I'm a Muslim. So when we were young, we would go to your regular school and then you would go to an evening school to learn Arabic, to read the Quran. And I remember my older sisters, throughout my whole life would say, you went for a test for the alphabets, and instead of saying the alif, ba, ta, which is Arabic for ABC, you say ABC. And the teacher was like, why would you say that? And it was a joke, like growing up. It was not until a couple of days ago that I realized that I've memorized most of the things in school. That's how I learned. I didn't read to comprehend. I listened to the teacher's lectures, and I could memorize things, and I could regurgitate that on paper, write it out, and I was not eloquent in writing. My wife is really a good reader, and my two daughters, thank God, they take after her. They literally went through like the whole 8 series of Harry Potter within 2 months of the summer, both of them, like phenomenal readers, and I'm not like that. It was not until that I discovered audiobooks that I was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I was just eating it up. So as I was growing up in New York City in the 90s, there was a rapper called Eric B. and Rakim. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Probably not.
No.
Mm-hmm. Rakim is he's actually probably a abnormal rapper. He's a college graduate. And in those days and age, rappers were like thugs and gangsters. But he was a college graduate, and his style was putting speed into that. So actually had multiple words in tempo within one beat. And that was unheard of back then. They had an interview with him, and I was really, really glued to the TV listening to him. He said, describe me, like, who is Rakim? And his answer was phenomenal, and I kept it. And he said, I'm a student of life. I study life so I can live it properly. I said, that is my motto. Like, I want to live life properly. So how can I learn how to live life? And of course, growing up in New York City and seeing all different things in life, I saw life not being lived properly in so many different spectrums. But then I also saw the ultra rich going down Fifth Avenue, Park Avenue. I was like, how can these guys afford these Park Avenue penthouses? I was like, wow, the spectrum of poverty in the ghettos and the penthouses. Nowhere else but New York City can you experience that, right? Within a few mile radius. To answer your story in a very long-winded way, I started listening to videos, YouTube channels, audiobooks, anything I could consume once that came available. That's how and then coming back to the person I was talking about, his name is Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory, a YouTuber. So he had like a whole different thing that I started eating it up audio, right? All different lectures. I just started listening to it.
How about you there, Kyle?
So trying to think of sort of the genesis of, I guess my answer, well, I've got lots of answers. I love listening to people. And I love, like, I've said this more often in the last couple of years for various reasons, but like, I just feel this innate part of me that if somebody's trying, I'm willing to walk through fire with them unless they give up, unless whatever, like, but if they're trying, the thing is contagious, that fire that you can feel from somebody that's got an idea or got something that they want to work on. And I've always been so drawn to that I need to work on my listening skills. I need to become a better listener. So it's not like I'm this like great listener. I just love sitting there and just letting people talk necessarily. I've gotten so much from the experience of just learning from other people and what they care about and why they care about what they care about, even more importantly than what they care about. I'm going to give you, a little bit of an off answer to what I listened to. Al's got me listening to some of his college lectures, history lessons as well. So that's really good stuff. But, and I say this all the time, so I have read every single Stephen King book except for some of the novellas and his latest book that I just haven't started yet. He's the best example I have for me personally of this, but it exists. My summer was also Harry Potter, by the way. I find that there's almost more in some ways that I personally can get out of a book like that than some business books in depth of understanding of how might human beings act if they're going through these things that seem tough, that are described in a logical way in a business book, but what are the things that might come up in the dynamics and personalities and things? What do I say? I love you to my kids? Yes. Do I say I love my car? Yes. What is love? And as heavy as and scary and all that the book It is by Stephen King, it's the most perfect and pure example of like articulation of love or evil that I've ever seen. And so, I mean, I just love listening to you. Yes, I'm like you. I listen to a lot of books, and for those pieces, really, and it's not that I'm seeking out something specific. I want to learn about that, but just sort of listening for this flair of how other people describe their understanding of the world or of people and or ideas. I've got a question for both of you, kind of to tie back where you guys came from and where you are professionally. And operational director has been some of the role in the past, and teacher, principal, Karen, in the past. And do you think that being in those positions professionally put you in a place where each of you got to experience things and people that drew you to this world of, I think I want to learn more about this and how to help? And Dilshad, you talked a little bit about that with employees that would come to you. And or do you think that this is something that's sort of innate in you and that this business is just a vehicle for that at this point, but you've been drawn to this all along? How I think if people met you at the business after hours for Tempe Chamber of Commerce, they might say, that's the guy, that's Dilshad. He's the American Swimming Pools company. That's Karen. She's got the radio show, but that's not really who you guys are. So who are you guys?
Ooh, as I break my computer here, I was going to say rock, paper, scissors. Are you deferring to me first?
If you like.
Sure. Wow, great question. I feel like this Business RadioX and my coaching practice, I Nudge, is a culmination of everything that has been a part of my life. It's like this big, incredible tapestry of experiences, intentional learning, both formally in school all the way through my master's, in addition to all the courses I had to take as a teacher and assistant principal. And just being curious about like what's next for me. I wish I could be the kind of person who could just say, I'm content. Like, I'm good. My siblings and my dad, I have 3 siblings and my dad have all been in the same career and in the same job throughout. And they've never changed. I have a list like this long of things that I've done, everything from Mary Kay director to real estate with my first husband and everything in between. And I don't know that I don't know what's next. So to answer your question, yes, the experiences early on as a 3rd grade teacher, but even as a lifeguard in the city of Tempe and coaching a swim team and being a leader has always been a part of who I am. And I just keep listening and paying attention to like, how else am I supposed to serve? How else, for me, it's a prayer. How are you going to use me today? Put people in my path that need my help and let me be conscious and aware enough to be able to show up for them. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but there you go.
Sure.
That's phenomenal. That's really good. So I'll tell you that I don't think of titles as who I am. I always remember the very first job I had officially, right? Unofficially, I remember growing up humbly and where my parents, I was a latchkey kid. Both my parents worked. So I remember one summer, nothing to do. So we hang out. New York City, and my next door neighbor, a kid that lived 2 buildings down, he said, let's go watch a movie. I was kind of shy to say I can't because I don't have any money to go watch. So eventually, he pulled it out of me, and I was like, I don't have any money. So he was like, oh, no problem. Let's go get some money. I was like, okay. Oh. So we walked to a huge supermarket, much like the fries and whatever, and he said, we'll pack grocery bags. And then, they give us tips. And he's like, and he just went to the end of the line and people were buying stuff and he would just say, can I pack a bag? And I was a super shy kid, like a crazy introvert. I was like, no, they're going to yell, whatever, right? So I saw him started doing it and I was like, So I just went to the end and I asked very, very timidly, can I pack your bag? One very, very nice lady says, sure, in a very loud, joyful thing. So I was like, cool. So I opened the bag up, started putting a thing, and then she left me a quarter. And then I said, okay, I didn't kill me, it didn't hurt me. Right. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to do it. So by the end of the day, we made like $3. Back then, the movie was like $2.25 to get in. And we had enough money for movie, soda, and a popcorn. Awesome. Right? So at the end of the day, I was like, this is cool. So that's my first unofficial work. My first official job was, again, introvert, right? Selling New York Post on the street on 42nd Street and 3rd Avenue, of all places, right? And this back in the days where 42nd Street was not a good place. And it's just a street vendor. I remember my manager, Charles Roach, I still remember his name. He would say, Rick, you can't just stand there and be quiet. You gotta scream, New York, like this in the movie, right? Get your post, get your... I was like, I am not screaming. There's no way. And he would say, scream, scream. And I was like, ah. And then people would start buying it. So I remember those jobs as humble beginnings.
Yes.
What's Operation Director? That's not, his title come and go. And one of the audiobooks, there was a guy I remember, and I remember this and I keep this in my mind. He said, I came across this podium. He was addressing a nation or something. And he said, I remember 2 years ago, when I came 2 years ago, there was a red carpet. There was a chauffeur picked me up in the airport, a red carpet. And when I came, there was a ceramic coffee cup, much like this, with hot coffee given to me. Now, 2 years later, nobody was at the airport. I had to grab a cab. There was no entourage, anything else. And in fact, I had to ask for coffee, and they pointed to me over there. That's when I realized that was never for me. That was for that director. It was for that position person. And he said, I am so disappointed. So having said that, I said, I'm not going to be that person ever. I'm going to be me. That's who I am.
That's one of the things that, back to reading history books is that in both your phenomenal stories is the opportunities that you had and the different things that popped up, and you're able to see that. In the past, like what a lot of people don't know is that your future was determined for you by birth. If you were born in a certain place, your dad was a carpenter, you were a carpenter. If you're a woman, who was your husband going to be if that was the only thing that was going to happen, because there weren't other opportunities for you. And so in many cases, what I find as I get older is that there are people who love to have a role to play, and it makes it easy because this is what I am and I can focus on all the other details. And there's others who have the path that says, I want to discover who I am from a me standpoint. And I think there was a French book that just jumped my head, the moi, the me. And I was in one of those college lectures once. It was called The Develop of the Modern Mind. And there really wasn't a self up until like the 16th, 17th century. It was unheard of. It was just like you were what you were, and you didn't think about these things. And then people started, as we started having more opportunities, more different things to think about. Because if you think like for getting knowledge, in the past, there was no knowledge. If you didn't have a library or any kind of books, or you didn't know how to read, it was through stories, or it was through, sitting back and listening to other people talk. Like there wasn't, like, we have so much information in our hands right now that we forget about all the stuff that we have, and we take that for granted. And I think a lot of times is that people, when you have to go back and make those big decisions, it freaks them out so much from a professional development standpoint. And I think that people want to be, here, but they don't realize is that self-development journey takes time and work and understanding. And if you read, Dilshad, when you talked about that, I remember like my mother, she was dyslexic. I remember sitting down and having a conversation with her, and she always went back and she said, on my report cards, I used to get like needs, cannot comprehend. And she grew up in an era in the coal mining region where nobody saw it, no one understood it. And so her development in that area was very stunted. She couldn't read it and didn't understand things. And, when you go back and you're like, and I think the other thing is that a lot of times in the world, people were very harsh to people. Oh, you idiot. Oh, you're done with this. And I remember reading, and if Scott remember ever listens to this, I'm going to quote Peter Drucker, as I do all the time.
Every time.
Yes.
As you should.
And so he went back and he said, as a manager, he said, you're either forming or deforming people. And I think from a professional development standpoint is that what are you forming somebody into? And that was one thing as a manager I always went back and I thought to myself, I'm always trying to develop people, make people better, or, rather than making them worse. So that's just one of the fascinating things as you talked about professional development. So as we kind of get to the end, I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about heroic. There'd be a certain person, like if you talk about this for 50 minutes and
Scott would be so disappointed in us.
So anyway, from the standpoint is, how have you liked it so far? And what things have jumped out? And as a professional development tool, how's it been working for you?
Great question. So I think I mentioned this when I first interacted with Heroic, the program itself. I think it's a godsend for me, especially somebody who's looking to self-develop, to take. So having been born in the East, I take a lot of Eastern culture. So there is one of the things that I've always got drawn to is, even though I was born in a Muslim family. I went to a Catholic school. I didn't take my faith on, say, okay, this is what it is. I questioned a lot. And I studied Hinduism, one of the oldest religions, and one of the most tolerant religion. Why is that this religion will accept any religion to come in and, hey, you want to God? Bring it in. Come on, bring it in. That was the concept. I identify with the Abrahamic faith of Judaism and Christianity because Islam have the same type of basis on it. And of course, Buddhism, I was born in Burma, which is the national religion, Buddhism, which is a direct derivative from Hinduism. Gautama Buddha was a Hindu prince. So that intrigued me, and I would study spirituality, the Eastern philosophy, and then the Western. Having that in heroic, right? Seeing the Greek, Roman, if you look at it, the Greek mythology is different personas of God. Even like in the Abrahamic religions, God is the all-powerful, right? He's the merciful, the kind, also the punisher. But I think in Roman and Greek mythology, they personified each character to say, okay, God of this, God of this, God of that. And that's only the difference. I can start seeing how they came about this. And then, of course, modern psychology, how you're talking about it's your brain. I was just reading a book about, even though we have evolved and developed our iOS internal system, even our food, right? So my daughters and I have a joke when in the beginning I used to tell them that you eat breakfast before they go to school. And now I don't eat breakfast in the morning. And they would ask me, why I'm not eating breakfast? Don't you know breakfast is the most important meal of the day? I heard one guy say, you should finish that sentence. He said, what is the end of that sentence? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day for the food industry. Because he said, think about it. As a human being, like you said, we were hunter-gatherers. We didn't have refrigeration. You didn't eat unless you went and hunted and got the animal. And you ate and you feasted. So you're not going to get up in the morning and have a meal. You go out, your body's made to work. And then have a little bit. You'll be surprised how little nutrition we need for our bodies to work. Mm-hmm. And that's why, and I'm one of the biggest one, right? That 3 meals a day, that's the biggest BS. Food industry has told us, right? 1 meal is more than sufficient. 2, purely good. But having said all of that, modern psychology brings it in right now, talking about 13-hour fast. All of these, when you put it together, about rest, about sleeping, how the seasons, in fact, impact the deep sleep, the security, all of these things, right? When you put them all together, and Heroic does that. Have I capitalized on everything? I have not. It's just too many things, but I am intrigued on so much that I can embark on.
Kyle, how about yourself?
I love it. My personality that's just in me, and sometimes I know Al wishes it was a little different, but I hate rules, but I need some structure or else I'll go off the rails. And so it's finding the balance in creativity with light reins or with the bumpers for the bowling lane or whatever that looks like. And as I started to put more words, like specific words, not just sort of feeling about what I wanted to be as myself and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up. And all right, that's not just going to be something where you put it on a business card or you just start telling people that like, you've got to exhibit certain behaviors. It became really interesting to me for that perspective. Okay, I've got this accountability tool I can use now that who's holding me accountable? Myself. Like we have a weekly roundtable here where we talk about this, and Dilshad and Rodney and others, and we talk around like how are we doing with the app, but more for myself. Am I hitting these numbers or not that I said are important? It could be anything. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter to you necessarily what my thing is or vice versa, but that's been great. And just the roundtables in particular to get to have sit around with other people that are in it. They're in life, they're in business, they've got all this stuff going on and that are taking the time to make this thing important. It's just been a really cool experience for me as well.
And Karen, I know you're not like on Heroic now, but what kind of apps and things do you work on from a professional development? I know that some of them lead to maybe the best hug of the day or something like that.
Oh,
So,
boy, I had to get the hug,
yes.
hug thing in there. For Dilshad, we told him that we were going to talk about that. Al and I have this long-standing joke. I'm a hugger. Al is not, at least limited. And so we have this joke about me hugging him. I think I've gotten 2 out of you in the last 5 years.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
You're due for one in 2026.
Okay, I'm going to mark my calendar and come after you at that point. Oh my gosh, I have the Better Me app on my phone so that I can better me. And it's tracking my macros so I can lose weight if I want to lose weight. I can build muscle if I want to build muscle. I have another app that is all around meditation and checking in on my emotional wellness all the time. And so I just get to set all the parameters for how often I want to hear from both those apps. And I have just a very strong morning practice. I bow in the morning. I do some tapping. I do meditation, those kinds of things. And it's been years of knowing that when I don't have those things in place, I'm a little whacked. So I have to make sure I subscribe to my own routine. And I also have a book group that my best friends from high school, there's 4 of us that we pick a book and we read it. Right now we're reading Signs, which is phenomenal. How I stay accountable. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are almost getting close to being out of time. So kind of go around and wrap up. Dilshad, tell us about your company, your website, how people can get in touch with you.
Excellent. Thank you. So my company is American Swimming Pool Company of Tempe. They can get in touch with me. I'll tell you, I'm a horrible social media person. The best way to get in contact with me is via text. And you can text me or you can go to the website and then it'll tell you a number to text me. My cell phone number is 602-585-5055. That's the easiest way to call me, text me, best way.
Okay. And you, Karen?
Not awful on social media.
No.
LinkedIn is the best bet, Karen Nowicki or Phoenix Business RadioX. And always open to a conversation. And whether it's about podcasting or life, would love to have an opportunity to connect.
So I appreciate everybody here being together on the show and also I appreciate you guys. But of this, I thought this would be interesting because you guys are interesting, but also because it kind of represents this other side of what happens around here and these connections of worlds. And I think about, the stakeholder map of a company. It's not like a heliocentric all coming out from me. It's like a neural network that we're all connected in. And so we can make those connections. There's so much more that can happen. And I just want to say one thing I appreciate about all 3 of you is that you don't just learn for personal or professional development or for intellectual curiosity, but you take that next step and show up. And show up to a community, show up to a physical place. It could be an online community now, but these physical places, I'm just more and more appreciating where other people are to learn from. And it shows because you guys show up in people's lives and in your business as leaders, and keep it up.
Oh.
Yeah, and I want to thank you both. It's one of the things whenever you come in here, like, okay, how are you going to fill an hour? And you go back and it goes back and you blink and it's like, it's time to start wrapping up these questions, but we appreciate your story. There's a lot of things that I'll personally take away from this, and for the listeners is that here at Mac 6, I've been working on this saying of late, is that we're about spaces, but we're also about our style and our substance. And we have places where to work, but also our style is caring about the people that are in here, trying to get them the tools that they need, because we thrive when they thrive. And then our substance is about with personal development through our Heroic app and professional development through our Growth Academy, where we're working on programs to help businesses be the best that they could be. Because, Kyle, what's our catchphrase? Mac 6 is a place where
businesses and people thrive.
That's right. And so part of that is professional development. And I want to thank everybody that's listening to this, the Future of Work podcast. We're going to wrap up today. And until next month, thank you for your time.
You've been listening to The Future of Work with Kyle McIntosh and Al Loveland. The business world is changing around us. Why not thrive in an environment of flexibility, growth, and community?